cannot have bad. You killed my father. Like father, like son.
Welcome to the motherfucker. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this, a card that I like to dub Kapow in Moscow, as veteran fighter and former Olympian Joe Joyce was stopped in the 11th round of the co-main event to the main event, Gassiev versus Kadiru, for the WBA title. Though before it came to that, Joe Joyce went 11 rounds with unbeaten up-and-comer Artem Suslenkov, who really didn't impress me with this performance, outlasting a very much faded and degraded Joe Joyce, who got off to a good start. He looked his best through the first 3 rounds of the fight. When both fighters were still fresh, he looked his old self, being very busy, physically imposing, throwing short punches mid-range to inside, bearing down on the smaller, younger fighter in Artem. He looked all right in the beginning. But as the old saying goes, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And in the 4th, Artem starts growing into the fight, gets in with a nice-looking right hand. Snaps Joe Joyce's head back, and the knees, they sort of went there for a split second. I think there is a legitimate argument that that was the best-looking punch, the most meaningful punch of the entire fight that lasted about 11 rounds. Periodically, Artem is getting in with left hooks around the side, over the top of Joe Joyce's, bearing down on him for most of the fight, putting short punches together. They don't have much snap on them, but with Joe, they never did. Even in his prime, he was always a bit of a slow poke, just a very busy one. And he was busy at the start in Moscow, but Artem Suslenkov, he starts growing into the fight, tries to come forward, exploding on an aged Joe Joyce. Fight progresses, and both fighters start to lose their shape past the midway point, just sort of leaning into each other, both exhausted. It's part of the reason I'm not impressed with Suslenkov, because he's a younger, fresher guy than a Joe Joyce. I mean, Joe Joyce, he's about 40. If he starts to slow down and get tired past the midway point, after doing most of the work, well, it's what you would expect, but Artem, he should have had more in the tank, more to give than what we got. Just enough to beat an aged Joe Joyce. Though, not enough to impress me. As the fight progresses past the midway point and both fighters start to lose their shape, they start leaning into each other. Joe leaning heavily into Artem Suslenkov, the smaller man, backing him up, backing him off, putting his size on him to exhaust him. It's a strategy. And when he wasn't doing that, he was putting together those short punches mid-range to inside, mixing in body shots in those combinations off the right hand. I think he should have stuck to that a little more. The right hand to the body. Because whenever he threw it, the punch got in, and the punch to the midsection from a guy as big as Joe Joyce. Artem showed a good poker face, but his body language said something else. Being the younger fighter, he should have had more to give, but he was slowing down just as much as Joe. Joe's 40. So it starts becoming more of a contest from the midway point towards the tail end of the fight. You could hear the corner advice from Sugar Hill Stewart to Joe Joyce that he was letting the guy off the hook. He was taking too many breaks. He'd start off the round all right, take a break, then allow Artem Suslenkov to finish the round strong. And it just kind of went that way for a few, going to the 11th, and that's where things get peculiar. That's where things get bizarre. Joe starts taking punishment, eats a 3-punch combination. Suslenkov's best sequence in the entirety of the fight. 3 punches, 4 punches, unanswered. Joe Joyce is feeling the effects of the last 11 rounds. What punches he landed and what punches he took. For some reason, with a minute left in the 11th, Joe Joyce, he sort of waves himself off, trying to take a break mid-round, at which point Suslenkov jumps on him, backs him into the ropes. Joe's still waving to the ref, like he's hailing a cab in Midtown Manhattan. He's getting backed into the ropes, punched in the face. It's like he just checked out, decided, okay, I've had enough. I'm ready to go home. So it looked. This was Joe Joyce's first fight with Sugar Hill Stewart in the corner. I was not optimistic that enlisting his aid would reverse the hands of time for Joe Joyce. I was skeptical. Seemingly, time has proven me right. I don't blame Sugar Hill Stewart for what happened. I'm just saying that I wasn't expecting a miracle either. I wasn't expecting Sugar Hill Stewart to make a big difference in Joe's corner. And he didn't. He didn't lose the fight because of Sugar Hill Stewart, per se. He lost the fight because he spent. He just doesn't have much more to give. There were moments in there where it looked like he had Suslenkov hurt, but he just doesn't have it anymore. to turn up when he needs to hit the gas when he smells blood.
If he can even still sense it.
There were moments in there where he's putting punches together on Artem, and Artem's not doing much about it. You got the sense that if he could hit the gas just a little more, he can maybe get this guy out of there. But Joe wasn't able to do it.
People are saying that he quit.
Well, that's what it looks like. It looks like Joe just mentally checked out. He got hit with a hard shot and decided, okay, that's enough.
That's it.
Joe shouldn't be fighting no more. After what he endured in the first two Zhilei Zhang fights, yeah. You know, I think that Zhilei Zhang actually beat whatever it was Joe had out of him.
Yeah.
And that was a while ago.
He ain't got it no more.
So I think we just saw the last gasp of Joe Joyce's boxing career. He won't be able to get back to the top. I don't think he should be fighting. At this point, he's just taking punishment to be taking punishment. And at 40, that is ill-advised. I think it's time for him to hang them up.
In the main event, we saw two-division champion Murat Gasev successfully defend his WBA title against short-notice opponent Peter Kadiru, who was standing in for Tony Yoka, who was reported to have suffered an injury in camp and thus was unable to compete. In truth, if it were Tony in there tonight instead of Peter, I think it would have been the same outcome. I think it would have went the same way. Gassiev by way of knockout.
I think Tony dodged a bullet in pulling out of this one. I don't even really think he's injured. I think he found something better to do, someone better to fight for more money, is what I think. In any event, Peter Kadiru stood in his place, and Peter Kadiru...
He got fucked up.
Over the course of 6 rounds, the fight starts, and what you get is vintage Murat Gasev. If you're not familiar with this fighter, or the World Boxing Super Series, where he competed against all the cruiserweight champions at that time, Usyk included, he's a mid-range to inside pressure fighter. Not that fast on his feet, but very dangerous within close quarters. So if you let him get close to you, you're in trouble. And that's what Peter did.
Throughout the first 2 rounds.
Peter had a height advantage and a reach advantage over Murat, but he didn't use it throughout the start of the fight. So Murat was able to get in there, get in close, work around Peter's guard that he stayed behind.
Throwing these very short pity-pat punches, just working around the guard, then bringing over something heavy to finish the combination.
The left hook to the body was a beauty.
What has been a signature punch for Murat Gasev for many years now throughout 2 weight classes, at cruiser and at heavy, the left hook has always been a very effective punch for Murat Gasev, and it was effective against Peter Kadiru. When it wasn't the left hook, it was a chopping right hand over the top. Peter Kadiru doesn't decide to wake up and do anything about it until the 3rd and the 4th round. The 4th arguably being Peter Kadiru's best round in the fight, but still being a round that he lost, where he got outworked and hit a great deal.
You could hear Shannon Briggs, Shannon the Cannon, in the background urging him on.
Let's go, Chan!
As Peter finally starts to let his hands go, show some semblance of a jab, put up some semblance of a fight from the 3rd into the 4th.
Let's go, Chan!
Seemingly blowing his wad in doing so, because in the 5th, he took that much more punishment, getting backed into the ropes, getting outworked by Murat Gasev, who I think in the 5th...
He looked like he was going to stop him, but then he just sort of let him off the hook.
Letting go of a salvo of punches as he had Peter on the ropes and then just sort of taking a break. I'm not sure if it was because Murat Gasev had punched himself out and he was making a conscious decision to take a break, or it's because, you know, he was winning the fight up until that point. There's no need to get overzealous. You're gonna get this guy. It's just a matter of time.
So maybe it was Murat being patient. In any event, he ended up stopping him in the very next round, so it's all much ado about nothing.
And by doing the same thing, inching closer to his quarry, letting go of very short punches mid-range to inside, manipulating the guard, and finishing the combination strong with either a left hook to the body or a couple of right hands upstairs around the side.
Manny Pacquiao, Derek Chisora, Shannon Briggs were in attendance for the fight. The Russian Hammer, Dmitry Kudryashov.
He was in attendance for the fight. Denis Lebedev was in attendance for the fight. I think I saw Grigory Draws.
Another gala spectacle brought to you by the IBA that are fast becoming a respectable promotion in the sport of boxing now that
They used to oversee all the amateur fights, but they lost recognition from the IOC and decided to throw their hat in the ring of professional boxing, and they've staged quite a few boxing cards since then. This being the latest one, they have at least one world champion in their roster in Murat Gasev, who looked like his old self. It was a vintage Murat Gasev performance.
This guy's a pleasure to watch. I just wish he would fight more. Maybe he will, now that he's full WBA champion as a result of Usyk abdicating the throne,
vacating his titles between that and the WBA once again saying that they're going to phase out all of the secondary titles. It would seem that Murat Gasev is the only full-fledged WBA heavyweight champion. Now, what makes the situation somewhat nebulous and immaterial is while Gassiev may be the only reigning WBA champion now at heavyweight, the WBA could always change their mind, walk back their stance on minimizing how many titles they have in circulation.
because they've done that before.
This would be the fourth time that they promised to minimize how many titles they have in circulation, so there is that.
They could always decide to manufacture a super title like they've done before to give to some more popular fighter from someplace else, because they've done that before.
Like what they did with Gervonta Davis and Alberto Machado at 130. Who's to say they wouldn't do that again at heavyweight? You can't really trust them. Thus, momentarily, Murat Gasev is the full WBA champion at heavyweight, but that could always change. I would like to see him fight the other belt holders at the weight, like Daniel Dubois. That makes for an all-action shootout.
Daniel's WBO title, Agit Kabayel's WBC.
Frankie Sanchez is in a pole position to become the division's IBF champion. I would say that Frankie is the stylistically most difficult fight, most dangerous fight for Murat Gasev.
The Cuban?
Yeah, because you know what Frankie likes to do. Frankie likes to get up on his toes, stick and move, stay behind the jab, and he's noticeably taller and longer than Murat Gasev. If you can shake and bake him, you can beat him.
Otto Wallin did, doing just that.
And you could give either Agit Kabayel or Daniel Dubois decent odds to beat Murat Gasev too, but the difference with them is they might actually punch with Murat Gasev. They might let him get close enough that he can land punches too, whereas Frankie's gonna stick and move.
Stay on the outside.
And so the heavyweight division is alive and well as a new crop of champions, a new cycle sprouts from the ground up in the ashes of the old era that is now coming to an end. Usyk ain't got but one fight left in him, and how much do either Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury have left to give? A new era of heavyweights is upon us. Just in keeping with the theme of all things heavyweight, Moses Itauma dismisses Hrgovic's recent wins because I ain't David Adilier, Dave Allen, or Joe Joyce.
We just talked about him.
The British heavyweight says Philippe Hrgovic's recent victories will not prepare him for the challenge awaiting at the O2 in London. Moses Itauma believes Philippe Hrgovic's recent victories have little bearing on what will happen when they meet August 29th at the O2 in London. The heavyweight contender says his team has already identified technical tendencies they tend to exploit against the Croatian. I respect you. You've done a lot in boxing. You've done a lot more than I have, said Moses Itauma to Queensbury. Those accolades won't fight for you. I ain't David Adilier. I ain't Dave Allen. I ain't Joe Joyce. I must say, even surviving that barrage of punches from David Adilier, and he's a big hitter. Like I said, our thing is exploiting one of Hrgovic's tendencies, or a few of them. Hrgovic, 19-1 with 15 knockouts, revived his career this year with victories over Joyce, Allen, and Adilier after suffering the lone defeat of his career against Daniel Dubois in June of 2024. Those wins restored the 33-year-old Croatian to contender status and earned him a high-profile showdown with Itauma. Trainer Ben Davison said neither he nor Itauma hesitated when Hrgovic's name came up during discussions about the next opponent. These are all fights that are going to happen along the way, and we're comfortable. Queensbury's comfortable. Moses is comfortable that this is the right fight at the right time, said trainer Davison to IFL TV. We all work together, and it's a fight that Mo has wanted for a long time. Obviously, we all go in, discuss, a few names get chucked about, offers go out. Not everybody. It's not a fight everybody's jumping at the take, obviously, for obvious reasons. And this is the one that stuck. And it's a fight he's wanted for quite a while. Rather than dwelling on Hrgovic's recent form, Itauma says his team have identified technical habits in Philippe that they intend to exploit. This is a good acid test for Moses, a guy who's still in his prime, been there and done that, won some and lost some,
He's got the amateur thing going for him. I think he won the bronze or the silver.
He's not small for the weight like some other heavyweights. Philippe Hrgovic is an adequate representation of what a fighter will face once he approaches the upper echelon of today's heavyweight division, where the median height for a fighter is anywhere in between 6'4" to 6'7". He's got size, he's got experience.
He's a good acid test for Moses, and I expect Moses to win.
Because it is true, he's not a faded fighter like Joyce. He's not a domestic level fighter like either Dave Allen or David Adilier. Philippe Hrgovic may have amassed a string of victories over those fighters, but they don't bring to the table all the things Moses Itauma brings to the table. Mobility, agility, hand speed, which I think is what's going to separate them. Moses has got snap on his punches, which is more than you can say for most heavyweights, Philippe Hrgovic included, and I say it all the time. A bit of speed in the heavyweight division goes a long way, because most heavyweights don't have any.
No suddenness.
No explosivity. Philippe Hrgovic's fundamentals are good enough that he might last a few rounds, but I do see this one ending in a knockout. I do see Moses stopping him. Beyond that, there was a recent order from the IBF ordering Moses Itauma to take on Frankie Sanchez for the newly vacated IBF title. I don't see Moses Itauma going that route. I believe that Frankie will have to fight someone else to become IBF champion. It won't be Moses. I believe that Moses, if and when he wins, he's going to target Murat Gasev. He's going to go after the WBA title.
It's a somewhat more winnable fight against a more beatable adversary.
And I don't envision that the WBA will have any aversion to Moses fighting for their title because Moses is backed by Queensberry Promotions.
All that UK money.
The United Kingdom being one of the bigger boxing markets, especially for heavyweights, I think the WBA would actually prefer that a British heavyweight be their champion than a Russian one. So if and when the time comes to negotiate that fight, I don't anticipate the WBA will stand in the way. A fight between Moses Itauma and Philippe Hrgovic is set to go down not far from now, so that there is enough time left in the calendar year that maybe they could squeeze it in for the winter months.
I think that Moses is a supremely talented fighter, and he has all the makings of what could be the next face of the heavyweight division, but one complaint I have is it just feels like he fights so infrequently that he could stand to be a bit busier, fight more often to get more people behind him.
I think the guy only fights once or twice a year. And at this early stage in his career, I think he should be fighting at least 3 times a year.
At least.
So that is the look of it for the foreseeable future. I have Moses Itauma beating Philippe Hrgovic, moving on to challenge Murat Gasev for the WBA title, maybe towards the end of this year, and that will shape the landscape of the current heavyweight division.